So a couple weeks ago, this video crossed my desk. This is Tony at Float Wheel, and he has this fancy $10,000, $15,000 dyno. I don't know, I haven't looked into it super hard, but jealousy. And I wanted to have a cool dyno too, but I don't have $15,000. And Jeff wasn't gonna lend me the money to make a $15,000 dyno. So I made one out of garbage.
Do we think it's gonna work?
20, stop.
I wouldn't push on those too hard. So we're not gonna be able to test this board essentially.
It's something. First, of course, step one to making a dyno out of garbage is using our hard-earned corporate cash monies to make a mount so I could have a better place to put the camera. Next, step two, because TFL barely sponsored this video as it is, I took one piece of wood that I found in my garage and I made two pieces of wood because sustainability. Step three actually is a step backwards. You can see here I spent time in Blender trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do and how to make it. Robert suggested that we use disc brakes for a mountain bike at one point, and I didn't like that idea, even though Robert's really smart and makes way cooler things than I do, usually not out of garbage. Good job, Robert. So finally settling on what we were going to do for the dyno as far as how we were going to actually slow it down. Dyno's not that crazy of a mechanical feat. It's really crazy. Engineers are nuts. Way out of my pay grade. We figured out that a one wheel essentially could be programmed to be an electric brake, which is how Dyno kind of measures things by braking. It doesn't make sense in my brain. I really hope that somebody out there is like, yo, dude, you just don't get it. You're not one with the ways of math. You're right, I failed geometry in high school. Look at me now, Mom, I'm on YouTube. After 3D printing the little rollers and the little slides for the board to go back and forth on, push the force meter, gauge, it's a force gauge, it gauges. I moved on to making the clamps, and the clamps!
Right?
do a very important job with the by far weakest points on the entire thing. For one, don't make this. It's not practical in any way, shape, or form. But if you're going to, don't use just like normal hinges for your thing. Find a better way to hold the board. I did what I did. Monkey see, monkey do, that's not the term. Don't do this. So after getting the framing to a point where I was happy with it, where it looked halfway reasonable to what I had planned out in my brain, I then decided to take my one wheel and give it a shot and see if it lined up. As you can see here, this is me wondering what I'm doing. Why did I do this? How did I, this isn't good. But moving on, it was good enough for me to just continue the project. I ended up installing the force gauge, getting the rollers all set up, and it started to look a little bit better. Better enough to think about actually just bringing it to the shop. But before I could bring it to the shop, I needed to clean up all the little sharp bits because Robert has soft hands.
Please don't base this on any of my skills as anything. I promise this is one of the crappiest things I've ever made. Hopefully it works. Let's take this to the shop.
Hey Robert.
Yo.
Is it everything you could have dreamed for? Look, you looked at my renders.
Dude, it's actually like pretty straightforward. Like,
yeah.
It's pretty robust. I like it.
Yeah. Do we think it's gonna work? I wouldn't push on those too hard.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this thing. It's solid.
Yeah.
Dude, this is rustic.
Shavings and spider webs and everything included.
Yeah, no, just leave all these on there. You know,
Yeah.
get a couple splinters.
Yeah.
It's all good.
You know, I did sand it before and I brought it in because it was pretty rough. Should we get a board on it and show you how it works?
Let's go, man.
Okay, cool.
Hi guys, welcome to the dyno. It's finally a thing. It's a real thing after how many weeks?
Months?
About months, but it's a real thing now.
When did we have this idea? Last year?
Months ago, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Ever since we saw Tony and we're like, damn, that handsome Tony has got really good ideas. Robert, what are we doing today?
We're gonna get force curves, torque curves, full characterization of this board up here. And the way we're gonna do that is not with a $5,000 fancy thing, you know, Tony, good for you, but we have a better, cheaper idea. We're gonna put a VESC on the bottom. This VESC is on bearings, only the finest TFL Grizzly bearings. So it is basically floating here. And then over on this side is the force gauge that's gonna measure how much force this board is applying from the top board, which we're gonna spin up and then lower down onto it.
God, she's angry.
So angry. Because this is a VESC and we have total control, Nico's gonna help us out by applying a fixed amount of load, braking load, to the target board here. Then we can write down how much force is being applied at different speeds. And we can use that to calculate the torque based on the wheel diameter. And that we can calculate the power and everything else that we need across the whole speed range of this board up here. And hopefully we'll get some interesting comparison data.
Okay. This is science.
Intervals of 10.
Intervals of 10, all right.
Go.
Ready? Hold up.
What?
It moved to the side.
Ooh, I smell that burn.
Yeah, I can see it. Did you see it?
I can smell it.
I think I came down wrong. Here.
Okay. That was about 15.0.
It's working. It's working. Past Julian, how naive you were to think that you would build something just so easily and have it work the first time. Well, when one presses down on the one wheel that is being tested, the bottom board is now being pushed without any torque from the wheels spinning into the force gauge. So what did I do? I pretty much had to rebuild almost everything from scratch. Not quite, but enough to justify a whole nother build montage.
Now, brainstorming after we did the first initial dyno test, Robert and I were sitting down and we were thinking, how do we get micro adjustments on how the board shifts back and forth because of pressures and yada yada. So we came to the conclusion of using a vise. So I have to weld a pipe onto this and then somehow adapt it to our force gauge. Hopefully I can get it to work. Yeah.
So using my itty bitty little brain, I figured out I didn't need to weld a pipe onto the sliding axis of the vise. I actually could take a new plate, attach it to the vise jowls, and now I had something that was detachable, that was more easily modifiable, etc. Made this whole journey so much easier. On top of that, I decided to take those little flimsy rollers that I made for the board and beef them up significantly. Thank you, Robert, for the engineering budget and all of the ASA and ABS that we use for the printers being available to me. Appreciate you. After getting everything reattached and getting the vise back onto the dyno, I decided to add some grip tape onto the board clasp just to make it a little more secure. When putting a board in there, we just noticed some shifting and stuff going on, and lo and behold, test 2 had begun. All right, we're back. V2, dyno in the flesh. Why did we do this?
Dude, this is incredible. The problem that we had is, if these wheels aren't perfectly aligned, you're pushing down on this to gain traction, and you're also gonna end up pushing over 12 newtons, 20 newtons.
Get in here.
So right now, I'm generating a force on this thing that has nothing to do with the actual torque that's being applied from the board. So what we want is for this to be perfectly balanced. So Julian, go ahead and crank that in a little bit.
Towards you?
Towards me, yep. All right, we're still getting a force,
Still
right?
Getting force.
Okay, still happening. Keep it going.
Yep.
Keep it going. Keep it going.
Almost there.
Almost there. Now at some point, we're gonna get,
the zero,
that's
which
zero.
is right there.
All right, so this does not apply any sideways force. So any force we do get is gonna be from the torque.
Perfect.
Locked in.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
And we're gonna measure it, record it with a little video here.
This is the first time you guys are hearing this conversation, but this is not the first time this conversation has existed, because obviously I had to build it. We are testing a GTS big tire gang. People are gonna be like, oh, well, that's not the first thing you should be. I don't care.
We're gonna test them all.
It's fine. We're gonna test them all. So, is Future Motion lying to you? This is not the board to put that to the test, but, so unlike the first time, I brought protection. So we're gonna get this thing going. Does this fit over an
Great.
Perfect. Let's rip.
Yes, sir. Now,
Cool. Oh yeah, Nico. Nico built this cool little script.
we basically, we're gonna be testing a ton of boards today, so we're gonna try to standardize as much as possible. So we've got a standard test sequence that all the boards are gonna run through. It just starts with the dyno board on the bottom having free spin, so that once we lower the top board onto it, we won't get too much burnt rubber flying in our faces. And then we're just gonna run through variable amounts of resistance being applied to the test board, and we'll see what kind of force we're getting. All right.
Board's not on.
All right, hold on. 20. 20 amps, 30 amps, 40, 50, 60, 70. Sweet.
That's it.
That's pretty
Wait,
successful.
so does that mean that this little XR Vesk just defeated a GTS?
That is true. In terms of low speed torque, once it got to those speeds, that is true.
I actually kind of makes sense. What was that, 70 amps?
That was 70 amps. That's a pretty aggressive load.
70
on the
amps is about
GTS,
exactly what we calculated that the GT/GTS puts
maxes out.
at low speed. Yeah.
Sweet.
That add up.
Sweet, that was awesome.
Let's use this high-tech loosening system. And there we go.
Oh yeah, so high tech and definitely not sketchy in every way possible.
Fully charged.
63 volt stock XR. Logging and run. A sec. 20 amps. 30. 40. 50.
That's it.
Sweet.
All right.
What was that sound? Just rubbing sound?
What sound? The sound of being cool and awesome.
Yes, sir. It's the sound of open source.
The sound of saving $5,000. All right, this is one that I want to see on video.
All right, so that XR just got vesked. What's the next one?
Now.
Just
100 volt versus 63 volt. Well, this is also 100 volt on a superflux. Superflux, in theory, is less torque and higher speed. But you can also pump more current into it. This could go a lot of ways. But I have a feeling we are not gonna completely stop it. Here we go. 20, stop.
That was scary.
It overcurrented. 20, stop. Go ahead. No. We might not be able to test this one with the 63 volt board.
Test 2 is the beginning of the end for successful testing and actual use of the dyno. I was actually kind of really surprised that it worked as well as it did, and we actually started to get really usable numbers out of it. Now, like I said, don't make this. It's a waste of time. That's why we made it. That's why I made it. So you don't have to waste yours. I wasted mine for you. But the one hurdle that we kept having was the valve board. Stanley, you built a monster, man. The 75 volt board that we had on the bottom for the Vesk testing board just didn't have enough chutzpah to stop or slow that board down well enough. We got it to work a little bit, but realistically we should have had something like an 84 volt Vesk on there as the brake to be able to slow that board down enough to get actual real data out of it. We do have it in the graph, which we'll show you in a little bit, but hindsight's 2020. Oh well. One of the last steps to getting this entire dyno video wrapped up was we had to max the board out and test how much poundage, how much torque was being pulled on the force gauge from the board before it completely cut out or lost traction. Now, I don't know about you, but I am so interested to see what kind of numbers all these boards made, what kind of power they're putting down. Are Future Motion's claims true? Are Tony's claims true? Who knows? But now we have a physical graph that we can show you and share with the world. So on top of this video, those graphs are gonna be linked below. We'll have images, full access to those. You guys can check them out whenever you want to. If you build your own dyno, don't do it, it's a bad idea. You'll have numbers to compare it to, see how off or on ours was as well. So if you guys do that, please feel free to share that with us. Don't do it, just don't. So we'll go bother Robert in his office and see what kind of information we got out of these graphs. Robert, sir, your graphs, explain them to me and the people. Now, you were the one who deciphered these graphs for us, correct?
Yeah, it's just been a while. Why don't we start with a question that came up when we released our hubs, which is magnet strength. Okay, so this you can perfectly see the difference between the stock GT and if you upgrade it to the, it's in green, and then the upgraded stronger magnets in blue. It was a very confusing subject for a lot of people. If you look at the lower speeds, we can see you get more power, which is also going to be more torque at lower speeds for the stronger magnets. And we said that, well, at higher speeds, there's a trade-off. Well, this graph shows you exactly what the trade-off is.
And when it happens.
And when it happens.
And we did three sets of data points, right? For each board?
Yeah, each board we ran 2 or 3 times to make sure we were getting good data. You can see just from how the curves aren't perfectly smooth that we clearly have a couple of
averages
going on there.
This is our comparison together with all the boards we tested: XR, Pine X, stock GT with M48, stock GT, Ghost Milo, which was honestly surprising.
Ghost Milo did really well.
I don't think anybody expected Ghost Milo to come out swinging like it did. But Jeff's 84-volt vest, which we just did a rep your set on. Go check that video out. The GTS, and then ADV, also very surprising up to a certain point. And then Stanley, get out of here, man.
I know, it's just
way different class.
Better. Well, we don't even have data at the lower speeds because the board was too powerful.
Yeah.
It just overcame our target board and it couldn't resist enough to even provide the resistance force. Oh, here we go.
This is just future motion.
Just future motion boards.
Yep.
This graph is really interesting to me. The pint, we can see because of its smaller tire diameter, gets better torque
up till
around 15.
13 to 15 miles an hour.
Yeah, better torque on the low end and then a lower top speed, which is kind of the trade-off that you make in every application.
Right.
But surprisingly similar overall. Like those two curves are very closely matched.
Yeah. Not to validate Future Motion's choice on getting rid of the XR platform in general, but they do make a comparable product.
It's very comparable.
So
in terms of power output, the GTS is just a monster. I mean, especially at 25 miles an hour, the amount of power you have is just, how much is it? The stock GT, we're looking.
So you actually, so from 20 to 25, you actually lose power. But on the GTS at 20 to 25, you gain
power.
Another almost 200, what is this measured? Watts? 200 watts of power more.
Yeah.
Between 20 and 25, and then it keeps going.
And at 25, the GT is at like 1300 or something.
Yeah.
Compared to 26, it's literally twice the power.
At 25
miles an hour. Yeah. So if you're going fast, there's just no comparison with the GT versus GTS.
So you suggested looking at the graph that they released for their GTS on launch. This is their graph modified to match our graphs, not in a way that's cheating anything.
Well, no, we just stretched it so that
just stretched it so it matched and overlaid with ours.
Yeah.
Here's ours. So they're actually, I mean, they're relatively in the same ballpark, but their graph is doing their product a disservice.
Yeah, it's so surprising. I think when those graphs first came out, people were like, where are they getting those numbers from? There's no labels on the graph. We can't see what it is. Well, what's the speed?
The graph is in power over, it's wattage.
It says power over speed, but there's no labels. So you're like, well, where's 25 miles an hour? How much power
what are these? What do these boxes mean?
It looks like their GTS is, 30% better than the GT. It's got like a little more, a little bump on theirs.
Yep.
And then when we overlay it, we see that our results, it's like, no, they're short selling the GTS by a lot. Yeah. It's almost like, well, hold on, don't stop buying the GT. It's not that much worse. Force is interesting because that is what's going to apply for your low speed hill climbing and stuff like that, where you're really pushing just the peak torque of the devices. And on there, we can see
ADV and GTS have a huge advantage compared to most things.
Yeah.
Is what it's showing.
So GTS still has substantially improved torque compared to a stock GT.
Yep.
Unless
unless you're Jeff and you're just nudging at 5 miles an hour.
So pull test was where we just attached a rope to the force gauge and just somebody stood on the board and just tried to.
Yeah, somebody was me. And I want to preface, the way that we did this is instead of making a whole nother device to hold the force gauge in place statically, I just took the dyno and I screwed it to the half pipe. There was no, there's no.
The force gauge is still attached to the dyno.
I flipped it around. I spun the vise around.
Yeah, I remember that. And then you just clamped it.
And I screwed it back down to it, and I screwed it. It didn't move. It did not move at all. So I think as far as variables go, I think there was very little variance in our measurements besides human error. I think it was a hell of an experiment, and I'm happy we did it.
So go get yourself where's Stanley's board on here? I can't even see.
It's right here.
It's way off to the side. Okay.
That's what you get for a $50 dyno.
right? $50, $60-ish for the...
Yeah, because we already had the 4-skate.
Yeah, we already had it. And all the wood I had, all the hardware I had.
Lots of room for a V2 if we ever get around to
Tony, eat your heart out.
Yeah, sorry, Tony. How much did he spend on his?
We don't know. I didn't look into it super hard.
He's got this huge, fancy, like electromechanical, fancy brake with measures.
It looks great. Does it beat hard-working American ingenuity?
I don't know.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. However, our value proposition is incredible.
It's incredible. I know this video wasn't like a lot of our other content, but if you guys enjoyed it, make sure that you let me know down in the comments. Do all the YouTube things. We really appreciate you guys, all our members, just being a part of this community. It rocks. Thank you so much. If you guys want to see other videos like this in the future, make sure you hit the like button because that'll let us know, hey, you liked this video. Maybe we should do more of it. And you know what? Bring it in. Come on. Come on, bring it here. Come on. Oh, that's so good. Wow. Is this good for you? I miss this, man. It's been so long. How are your kids doing? You still trying to build that pool in the backyard? Float on, my friends.